The research shows that 60% of all projects fail either when it comes to their goals in scope or budget or quality. And another study shows us that 75% of IT project managers believe that their software project will fail before it even starts. And yet here we are. This is our industry. We're project managers. This is PMI. The industry has grown in the last decade. I mean, I remember when I started in project management, the PMBOK was about 1/4 of an inch thick. So clearly, we're not getting the results that we would like. So what's going on? What's happening? Well, a lot of research points out to different reasons. They say lack of sponsor involvement. They might say lack of team member accountability. Or they might say lack of resources. I'm going to suggest to you today is that all of those reasons, all of the key reasons that projects are not as successful as they should be, boils down to one concept. And that concept is engagement. Engagement by sponsors, by team members, and by the departments and other parts of the organizations that we're performing this project for. All right? So, what is engagement? Now, there are a lot of different definitions of engagement. If you go out and look if you Googled employee engagement or team member engagement, you're going to see a lot of different definitions. But I'm going to suggest there are two things that everybody can agree on. Engaged team members are involved in, committed to, and enthusiastic about their work. And the other thing that's a little more important is they're willing to spend discretionary effort towards project goals. As project managers, we know that that's critical. Because most of the time, the people on our team, they have different jobs, they have their day jobs, right? They have the other things that they need to get done, and we've asked them to work with us on this project. And if they're not engaged, if they're not willing to spend some discretionary effort, it's going to be very difficult to get the job done. Now, we know through studies that engaged employees are better performers, right? They provide higher levels of service, they are more productive, and they collaborate better, right? But the Gallup engagement study has shown that in the US, only 30% of employees are identified as engaged. 30% are engaged employees. And what's worse is that 17% of employees are identified as actively disengaged. That means they're trying to be counterproductive. And if this is true of organizations in general, think of what that means to us as project managers, because it's probably more true for projects. So what can we do? And why haven't we been more successful? And I'm going to suggest that as project managers and organizations in general, when we deal with employee engagement, we're using the wrong toolbox. And by the way, I want to mention those statistics, that 30% and 17%, that's remained static for at least the last 3 years. And yet, most of you who work in organizations know that employee engagement is something that we're paying attention to. But I'm going to suggest that just by paying attention to it doesn't solve the problem. And oftentimes the things that we try to do to improve employee engagement, we're using tools from the wrong toolbox. We're using managers' tools. And as project managers, we use the tools we know. We create the plan and we put it in front of them and we say, look at the deadlines. These are the deadlines you have to meet. And if they don't meet the deadlines, we escalate it up to their manager or up to the sponsor who comes in and tries to make them compliant. You need to comply with this project plan. All right? But as we learned, how many of you, we learned it in the keynote this morning, in Andrew's keynote this morning, and if you were in Marcelino's Resistance to Change, people aren't compliant. You can't force somebody to be compliant, right? A process is compliant. Things that you manufacture are compliant. People are engaged, and you have to engage them. And so what I'm going to suggest is that we use a new toolbox, that we use tools from leadership toolbox, specifically serving leadership toolbox. And I'm going to go over today 6 specific tools that we can use as project managers to help foster an environment of engagement. Those tools are to understand and articulate purpose, to focus on outcome and strengths, to use engaging language, listen to learn, coach for growth, and evaluate to engage. Now, I'm going to go through these, and I'm going to go through them faster than I had planned on. However, what I want you to understand, 2 things. First of all, these tools build upon each other. So the top ones are kind of the foundation for the latter ones. And the other thing is that each one of these tools has 2 parts. There's a mindset and there's a practice. And the mindset is that part where you have to come to grips with how you're going to employ this tool and how this tool kind of impacts the way you think and operate. And then the practice are those things that we can actually do to manifest these tools on our project teams. All right? Are you with me so far? Good. Let's jump right into the first one. Understand and articulate purpose. So, purpose, as it's defined kind of in the dictionary, is a stable and generalized intention to accomplish something both meaningful to the self and of consequence, I'm way past, and of consequence to the world beyond the self. All right? But it really boils down to one thing. Boy, this thing is terrible. It boils down to why. All right. Why are we doing the things we're doing? We have to understand and be able to articulate our why. You need to know what your why is. In his TED Talk and in his book, Starting with Why, Simon Sinek illustrates this very well with something he calls the golden circle. And it looks like this. I'm going to draw this up near the top because I know it's hard to see from the back. On the outside is what? In the middle is how. And on the very center is why. Most individuals and most organizations operate from the outside in. They start with what, and if they're very good, they make it to how, and if they're excellent, they make it to why. Right? We all know what we do. We know what we do, and some of us know how we do it or how we want to do it. We want to do it with integrity. We want to do it with purpose. We want to do it in an excellent way. But very few of us get to the why. Why are we doing this? I can give you an example. I work with Kelly Services, and Kelly Services, we're very good at the what, and the how. You know, we come in and we consult. We do temporary staffing. We will consult with you to do recruiting, all sorts of other things. But what we really need to understand, and I think what Kelly Services, I will say what my organization does a great job of doing, is explaining why. Why do we do this so that we can put people to work, so that we can match up the appropriate talent with excellent opportunities. That's our why. Right? If you look at, Simon Sinek talks about Apple Computer. He uses them as an example. If Apple Computer were like any other computer company, they would say, we build great computers. We make them elegantly designed. We make them easy to use. Do you want to buy one? He says, that's nice, but it's not that inspiring. But what Apple does, the difference is they start with why. They say everything we do is to encourage you to think differently and to challenge the status quo. We do that by designing our products with elegance and by making them simple to use. By the way, we happen to make computers. Do you want to buy one? It's much more engaging. And so what I'm going to propose to you is, as project managers, we need to be able to understand, not only understand, but articulate our why. Why are we doing the project? What's the importance to the organization? What's the importance to the world at large? Why does this make a difference? The reason that's important, like I said, why, this is a foundational tool. Why, if we can understand and articulate our why, that supports intrinsic motivation. Now, intrinsic motivation means that the thing that is motivating us, what's motivating us, is coming from inside. We're motivated because we want to be part of something big, because we want to be part of something important. And in his book Drive, Daniel Pink talks about intrinsic motivation is the longest lasting and most reliable form of motivation. And what's interesting is they rank different forms of motivation, and monetary reward usually comes in about 5th. So it's that intrinsic motivation. If we can tap into that, we're going to engage our team members. The other thing it supports is what I call empathetic collaboration. If we're all working towards the same why, we can collaborate better. And what I mean by empathetic collaboration is that means that I know, as an IT person, I know and understand what life is like in the finance department. I know and understand what life is like for the people in accounting at year end. And that makes me more willing and able to collaborate. And again, to use that discretionary time to maybe help them out where they need help. And the top of the pyramid is creative autonomy. Creative autonomy is the pinnacle. That's where we want all of our team members to be. And creative autonomy means that I can independently solve problems as they arise that are in line with where the solution is in line with my goals and my values.